What's up, guys, and welcome back to the Uncultured Cinematic Universe. Each episode, we take a look at classic and iconic films from two perspectives, that of the diehard fan and that of the uncultured who's never seen it before until now. And that is Joe. Joe is the uncultured.
I am the uncultured.
He is. So if you notice, this is my second episode in a row, and I'm very excited. So speaking of, we're your hosts, Justin and Joe, and today we're taking a look at what I consider to be the perfect love letter to Halloween, 2007's Trick or Treat, treat. It's apostrophe R, treat. As a reminder, you can watch us on YouTube or listen to us wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and the like. Just search for The Uncultured Cinematic Universe. And also find us on Instagram at UCU Podcast for updates and fun little tidbits and, whatever else we throw on the story and feel like is relevant and fun. So, without further ado, let's don our costumes, leave a jack-o'-lantern lit for Sam, and let's get into it, Joe. We're going to talk about Trick or Treat.
Yeah, five episodes into our podcast, and we're already breaking our own rules, but Halloween is definitely your season, so I'm really glad we were able to kind of have a mini series that was more Justin run than Joe. But I promise November is going to be my month. We're going to double up on Joe movies coming up.
I'm ready for Joe movies. I'm ready to give the reins over to you and not do as much homework and just sit back and enjoy a movie for fucking once.
It is a little bit easier being the uncultured rather than the one that has to kind of do the research here.
You're right. It is so much easier to just sit back just on your hands and just kind of enjoy the information wash over you. So last time we did Over the Garden Wall, and we did something a little bit different as opposed to watching in our different spaces, our different homes. For Over the Garden Wall, I went to Joe's house and we watched it there. This time for Trick or Treat, a treat of sorts, we went to the movie theaters and saw this movie. For the 15-year anniversary, they decided to bring it back into theatrical release. Well, not even back, because I told you this on the way there. This movie has never been in theaters before.
I was surprised by that.
Yeah, we'll talk about it a little bit more, but yeah, this was a straight-to-DVD release cult classic. So before we get any further, let's go ahead and do this, and we're going to watch the trailer. Joe, this is so much fun. This is a really good one. I think you're going to dig it. So here we are. It's R, by the way. This is rated R.
It's rated R.
Buckle up. I'm scared already.
This is the one night.
Don't forget your costume.
All sorts of things. Roam free.
The Halloween School Bus Massacre.
Be quiet.
Why?
You'll bother the neighbors.
I hated that kid so much.
What is that?
Wait. There's another tradition. Always check your candy.
Something out of your weird voices! Logan! Over here!
You gotta be kidding me.
Yeah, dude.
I hate Halloween.
So good. That is a great trailer. They captured the whole thing in it.
Mm.
Whoever cut that trailer, they did a good
Yeah,
job.
it's a very it's not a normal narrative for a movie to have. It's kind of intersplicing between four different stories, four and a half ish.
Yeah,
So having to put all those together, I think they really had a well-rounded take on that in that trailer.
absolutely. Yeah, and for the audio listeners who couldn't read what was going on between some of the shots, there's this one that I caught. It says it unfolds, or one of the reviews says it unfolds like Pulp Fiction, and it
Ooh.
100% does. And that's an important thing to call out uh, about this. So if you've been keeping track, all of the movies that I bring up or think the series that I bring to the table, they're all fucking anthologies for some reason. And I don't know what that says about my personality or my psyche, but I just enjoy an anthology kind of storytelling for some reason.
You love a circular plot. You love individual vignettes.
I do, and yeah. So like, Pulp Fiction was my first one, and that obviously was the cornerstone for it. And Over the Garden Wall folded in that kind of similar way of just like
Hmm.
individual stories, and then this one does too with Trick or Treat. Um, but yeah, so I'm going to hit you with some numbers and some basic overview of this movie. I had a fun time digging into this, just learning about it. There's some neat gems in here. So yeah, so this was written and directed by Michael Dougherty, and this was his directorial debut. Joe,
Hmm.
would you believe that?
I would believe that just because it was like released on DVD. It didn't seem like they were planning on spending a lot of money on distribution here. However, in terms of just like horror movie tropes, he really seems to have a good understanding of what he wants to pay homage to versus what he wants to kind of like turn on its head a little
Yeah,
bit.
definitely. This guy studies film. He has studied film for sure. Some of his resume. So he was a writer on X2. That's X-Men 2, the sequel, the good one
The good one, yeah.
from the original three. Also a writer on Superman Returns, a controversial
Yeah.
superhero flick.
Interesting one.
Yeah. So a follow up that he did to Trick or Treat, he also did a wrote, directed, produced. So he was wearing all three hats for another horror movie centered around a holiday called Krampus, and that one is another one of my favorite like holiday style kind of horror movies. I'm not going to subject us to watching that this December. I'll save it for next year. But it's a good one.
I
It's got similar vibes.
I haven't seen it, but I know of it. It seems like this director's really kind of building a niche for himself in like the gritty horror slash comedy genre because
Yeah.
there's definite comedic undertones to Trick or Treat as
There
well.
definitely is. And then here's the other one. One of his most recent ones that he brought to the table was Godzilla, King of the Monsters. He did that one. He wrote and directed that one as well.
That one's not as funny, but I really enjoy the Godzilla
You
movies.
know what? I haven't spent much time with those at all. I saw like bits of the original like new reboot or whatever with like
Hmm.
Aaron Taylor Johnson and Bryan Cranston in it. I saw that one, but I didn't do the follow up like the next three movies that they did. And I saw the 1996 one with
Matthew Broderick,
Matthew Broderick. Yeah.
where
So
Godzilla is just like a dinosaur.
yeah, I need to circle back and see some of these new Godzilla ones, as well as the tie to the King Kong movies. Right, I need to do that too.
The new Godzilla movies are really great in I don't really care about the human characters as much because they kind of change between movies, but they're kind of spectacular in how they use slash don't use Godzilla. I
Mm,
think like in the first one he doesn't come in until like over like 40 minutes in or something like that,
yeah.
and then it's very climactic at the end, and there's moments that had me just like crying from just pure energy in the theater.
Oh yeah, love
um
that.
when he's fighting some of these monsters. They're really great. They're like the Fast and Furious with me. They're just perfect movie theater movies.
Right, yeah. Just a big bowl of popcorn, um, alongside a big 20-ounce can of whatever the hell you got from the fountain.
The
But yeah,
child
so
size,
yeah, I
yes.
love it. But yeah, Michael Dougherty, he loves to sit in the director's chair as well as, put pen to paper. So I commend him for that. Uh, I don't know how common that is these days. But yeah, so this movie was completed, wrapped, and ready to go in 2007, but it didn't hit shelves on the DVD counter until 2009. Um, this movie was first shown at film festivals and sorts. The first one being this hilarious one I never heard of before. It's called the Butt Numathon in December of 2007, and then several other film festivals throughout 2008. But yeah, like you said, the studio wasn't super confident in the film. They didn't want to release it alongside. I think they were doing another one of the Saw movies was coming out, so they didn't want it to release alongside there. And then also, Superman Returns didn't do super hot at the box office the year prior, so they were kind of just like, you know what, we're just gonna wait for a bit and just go straight to DVD.
Interesting. Yeah, it seems like it's kind of very much in the time period when straight to DVD movies were hitting their heyday before like Netflix and stuff hit.
Right, but usually that meant like the death knell for some of these movies. They would just barely make a blip and then go away. But this one did
I
not.
think this one just had like the quality and the again, we'll get into it, but like the surprises in its storytelling to kind of stand out from the crowd.
Yeah, we'll talk about it like towards the end about just how this movie reached cult status. It's a really neat kind of thing to glom onto because it's unheard of for a lot of movies that go straight to DVD to kind of gain this kind of popularity.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so this movie had a $12 million budget, relatively small, and yeah, alongside it there was a small run of comics that were supposed to tie in to the film's release, but never happened, obviously, and just got packaged up on the shelf and was released as a graphic novel in 2009, which I'm feverishly trying to get my hands on comics like this. Over the Garden Wall also did a comic run, but those are
Mm-hmm.
also notoriously hard to get a hold of. But
Yeah, the movie's kind of bookended by comics in the credits on both ends. You can kind of see where the inspiration for that came from.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, in a bit we'll talk about how Michael Dougherty came to this idea and brought it to life. But before we do that, gonna get past the spoiler hurdle and gonna hand the microphone over to Joe, and we're gonna do the plot, the Joe plot go. If you're ready, and you know what,
How much time are you giving me?
I'm gonna give you 2.5 minutes again because this movie's all over the place, and heard from the fans that maybe you cheated a little bit by writing it down.
Everyone is saying that I cheated with Over the Garden Wall, which was a mini series, so cheating in and of itself. And so to prepare for the plot description of Trick or Treat, I have not prepared at all.
Thank
And it's going to
God.
be fully off of my head,
I love
and
it.
we'll see what gets in there versus not.
Mhm.
And I'm not going to stress about it.
Good. Don't even stress. Don't even trip, dog. All right. So we got 2.5 minutes on the clock. I'll hold it up for you just so you can keep it going. But whenever you're ready, take a deep breath, breathe in and out, and here we go.
All right. Trick or Treat is a movie about Halloween. It takes place on Halloween in a small Ohio town that's obsessed with Halloween. It's in modern days, and it kind of tells the story of four vignettes around this town that you realize are interconnected in more ways than you think at first. So starting with there's a principal of a school who's giving out candy, and he turns out to be a serial killer. He kidnaps a kid that he gives cyanide to after having a really creepy talk with him on his front porch. When he kills the kid and tries to bury him in his backyard, he keeps getting interrupted by his super annoying son who wants to go trick-or-treating and carving jack-o'-lanterns, who's yelling out his window in the middle of the night at this guy. And this is like the most anxious serial killer of all time, and he goes in and you think he's going to kill his son, but it turns out he's actually carving the kid that he murdered's head with his son, and the son is really into it as well. So they got you on that one. Okay, the second story that's kind of happening at the same time as this is Anna Paquin is with a group of friends, and they're all kind of dressing sexy for Halloween, except she's kind of the virgin. She's giving off real like final girl vibes in a slasher movie.
Yeah.
And they're trying to find boys to bring to this party that they're going to in the woods.
You got a
And
minute.
her sister keeps mentioning her mom and that she was the runt of the litter. And I definitely called the ending of this one before it happened. And it turns out that they're actually werewolves, and they're looking for boys to take into the woods and kill. And then they go and they turn into werewolves once they kill them. The third story that is happening at the same time involves these kids who are going around collecting jack-o'-lanterns to throw into the quarry, where a bunch of kids in the 50s died when a bus driver who was paid by their parents to kill them drove the bus into the quarry.
20 seconds.
Oh God. And the kids bully this other girl, and the girl ends up leaving them to die in the quarry when the actual zombified kids from the bus end up killing them. And then the last story is Brian Cox plays the neighbor of the serial killer, and it turns out that he's the bus driver, and he gets into a fight with Sam, who's the spirit of Christmas that's kind of been like in all of these stories the whole time.
Love it. Done.
Wow.
You're done. That was close. You spent a lot of time. You do this. You spend a lot of time
on the front there.
On the very front end. But you got it in there. You got to Brian Cox, which is great. Well done. Yeah, this is tough because there are, like you said, there's 4 distinct kind of things going on. But damn it, do they ever interweave? I know you noticed that like at a couple points during the movie, you're like, oh, it's the people from the beginning. Or
yeah, I kept on gasping at you. So what I didn't mention in my plot description is that it's a very circular narrative in that it starts in the same scene where it ends. There's a whole entire scene where Sam, who's arguably the main character of all these stories, he's this little masked 5-year-old looking kid in pajamas, and you never really see his face until the very end. And he's kind of the one going around making sure that people follow the rules of Halloween. There's something supernatural about him. And if they don't follow the rules of Halloween, he kind of kills them.
Yeah.
And so he starts out by killing Leslie Bibb. And I spent about 5 minutes in my head during that scene figuring out whether or not it was Leslie Bibb. Because I was like doing math. I was like, is this before or after Iron Man? She looks way too young. Is that just an actress who looks exactly like Leslie Bibb? It was Leslie Bibb.
Yeah.
So he kills her. It starts out the movie. And then you don't really realize it, but all the other characters are kind of crossing paths at that point. Then you go into their individual vignettes. And then at the very end, it comes back to that moment. And so the stories are kind of told out of place in time as well. You don't really know what's happening at what point.
Yeah,
but it's really fun how they interact in that way.
I meant to go back and like write out what's the chronological things of that really happens, and I mean you can kind of infer it just how it all lays out. But yeah, like that intro specifically, like in the first 10 minutes, is where a ton of overlap happened. I highly suggest going back and watching it again. I'm gonna tell you that every single time. Go back and watch the intro. You can see the zombie kids like shuffling off screen because they're on their way to Brian Cox's house. In another quick shot, you can see Schrader, that charming motherfucker, just run off screen with a grocery cart with pumpkins in it. You can see him just.
Yep.
And
there's lots of like stuff happening in the backgrounds of other scenes. I want to see like the animated flow chart of each individual timeline and like when they cross each other and when each things are happening. Yeah. There's a moment where the kids are at the quarry and they hear wolves and someone's like werewolves, and that's when the bonfire is happening with the sexy girls and stuff. It's fun
with the Anna Paquin of it all. Yeah,
the Anna Paquin of it all.
But yeah. Cheers to you for doing your damnedest for off the cuff, bringing it back around the off the cuff plot, and that's a good segue here into the cocktail hour. We're gonna get better about this. I took a really sweet picture, and we're gonna throw it onto Instagram along with the recipe. So this right here, this is what I'm drinking, Joe. This red cocktail that I'm drinking. This is the Red Riding Hood. This is the Red Riding Hood.
Tell me about it.
This is some bourbon, hard apple cider, and some ginger ale. And some red food coloring. But yeah, so Red Riding Hood, obviously being a reference to Anna Paquin's character, very tongue in cheek of a wolf in sheep's clothing kind of thing, right? She's flipping the old fairy tale story on its head. But yeah, that one's my favorite segment of the four. And I think I told you as it was coming up, I was like, this one's my favorite. But yeah, so I wanted to kind of pay homage to Anna Paquin.
Yeah, I think we both agreed that the moment where they're around the bonfire in the middle of the woods and they finally start changing into werewolves, and you finally realize it's all coming together. Oh, they've been the wolves the whole time. And then Sweet Dreams Are Made of These by the Eurythmics really slowed down as a cover starts playing.
Mm-hmm.
We both agreed that was kind of the most amazing part of the movie.
Yeah, they almost didn't use that song. They almost used a completely different song.
It was perfect.
But it needed to be a little more gritty, a little more sinister. So they used Marilyn Manson's cover of Sweet Dreams.
That's what it was, yeah.
And that's one of the only things, there's two things that stand out in this movie that do not hold up. And one of it is Marilyn Manson. Turns out he's a shitbag, right? So that's the only
not give him money.
Yeah, that's the only thing that kind of sucks the joy out of that scene. Other than that, like, it's still rad. It's still a neat choice. And then the other one, they just throw out an R-word slur a couple times, and it sucks.
I did notice that. I was like, wow, yeah, 2007.
2007 is really showing its true colors at the time. I think I mentioned it last time, like the Obama years hadn't come in yet, so we weren't the best America we could be at that point. So it's a big bummer. But yeah, what are you drinking over there, Joe?
Let me tell you about my cocktail. It's called the Leslie Bibb. And I'll tell you why. It is made of gin, lemon juice, simple syrup, and egg whites.
Great.
It's a little bitter. It doesn't vibe with the Halloween spirit at all.
Nope.
And I feel like Sam Rockwell would like it. It's the Leslie Bibb.
It's the Leslie Bibb. Cheers. Well done, sir. I like
Cheers.
It. Yeah. I hope you took a picture of it. If not, you can make another one. And
I did. I just awkwardly took a pic now, and we'll post it later.
We'll hit it up on the IG for you folks. Don't forget at UCU Podcast. Always be plug-in, right? So
I like how we're podcast, but also slowly but surely becoming a cocktail influencer Instagram as well. Plan.
We just got to make sure to throw in those hashtags of cocktail hour with Joe and Justin. That's the new thing. That's what it'll be. But yeah, so here's the heart of the episode. Here's what makes what we do here at the Uncultured Cinematic Universe special. This is why this movie is important to me, and I wanted to talk about it for a bit. So obviously, I mentioned at the top, I have a penchant for some reason for anthologies. This one just is my spooky season pick. On the way home from the theater, Joe, I mentioned that my wife and I came up with just this off-the-cuff rhyme that is very true. Spooky season isn't complete until you watch Trick or Treat. And we live by that. So, like, in all honesty, I have seriously seen this movie every single year, every single spooky season for probably the last 10 years, without fail. It's just a thing that I do. I have to watch this movie.
Where did you first watch it, if not in theaters?
So I saw it in probably late 2009 or 2010 with my buddy Chase, who lives out in East Atlanta.
Shout out to Chase.
Shout out to Chase Fiorenza, folks. He's a classic horror fiend. Him and his dad love the classic John Carpenter 1978 Halloween. He watches that one every year. But he's a seeker of the weird and obscure kind of movies, and this was like hey, this movie just came out. It's really cool. You need to check it out. It's perfect for Halloween season. It's really weird. It's rare. It's got a couple people you may recognize, but like, we should check it out. And like, I immediately loved the vibe. Joe, this is 100% another vibe film.
It's a vibe.
It is 100% a vibe. It captures everything that I love about a spooky movie. I liked the push and pull of like the horror with the humor, for sure. The gross outs, the body horror, and then especially werewolves. Werewolves are my favorite, like, supernatural being. Like, vampires are cool, but they're overdone. Zombies are cool, but they've also been played to death. But like, werewolves are like my sweet spot. And then it's just like cool ghost stories and all that kind of stuff. It hits all of the points that I love. Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to think of like where I first kind of encountered this movie because I was definitely familiar. I wasn't really familiar with the plot at all going into this, but I was definitely familiar with like the character of Sam, who's
Yeah.
like kind of the interconnector between all of these stories. He's the little kid with the pumpkin mask on.
Mhm.
And I'm guessing it's just because I had seen so many images of him. He's kind of like the icon for the film.
Yeah.
But it's weird because I wouldn't have seen it at a movie theater. And thinking back, it's probably because this movie gained a cult status so quickly
Yeah.
that I probably would have seen it on like, the best of lists for any Halloween movies out there that kind of just come around every season.
Yeah, this movie, I mentioned it. It played in some of the festival circuits and stuff. But in 2009, just before it hit DVD shelves, they played it at Comic Con, San Diego Comic Con, in Hall H, and it was sold out, and it was a packed crowd, and everybody was just eating it up. So I think that kind of helped propel the momentum to like go buy it off the shelves. As soon as it started hitting shelves, it was getting sold out, like picked off immediately. So they kind of knew that something was afoot, and I don't know what it is about it that kind of just connects with that with other people. Like you mentioned, like Sam is the icon of this movie, and I think over the years he's kind of become sort of like the official, unofficial symbol in a way of Halloween. Period. The season. You have the big serial killers from the movies from the 70s and 80s of Freddy Krueger and Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees and all this kind of stuff. But for some reason, like Sam is just, I don't know, he's kind of embodies it all.
He does stand out because like literally within the story, he is kind of the Lorax of Halloween. He's making sure that people are following the rules correctly. He's not actually a kid, as we find out.
He's a pumpkin demon.
Crazy pumpkin demon, but he's also not the way he kind of stands out from that group that you're saying of like Jason and Freddy and Michael Myers.
Yeah, baby.
He's not exactly the villain of this film, and that's what I kind of liked about it. He's more just like an onlooker in certain areas, and then you get to Brian Cox. That's more like his actual story is when he really enters and he starts duking it out with Brian Cox in his disgusting dirty house.
Once you take money, dirty money, to off a bunch of
insanity.
Kids,
I was
like, yeah.
The only thing I was thinking of during that scene is like all of the logistics it must have taken for those parents to get together and all agree to murder their children. Like, who was the first parent to suggest it?
And then who was the outlier? Who was the one just like, you know what? I don't know, you guys. I don't know.
Insane that they all agreed to murder their children.
Yeah, right. It's Ohio. You can't really predict. Listeners in Ohio, can you please tell us like what's in the water? Whatever this what is this, Warren Valley, Ohio? Is that a real place? And is this based on any kind of weird legend?
One of my notes is like, this is definitely one of those movies, the same as Hocus Pocus, that falls into the bucket of like towns that are weirdly obsessed with Halloween.
Yeah.
Even like the jack-o'-lantern stuff, like I didn't even realize all of the rules around jack-o'-lantern. I don't know, you're supposed to blow out jack-o'-lanterns after midnight or something like that. I feel like I'm going to be killed on Halloween by the spirit now.
I mean, I think you've been fine up to this point, so you probably accidentally left it lit without even knowing, right?
I'll use electric ones.
And, I was thinking about that as I was turning on my pumpkins last night. I was like, I hope Sam makes an exception for this because I'm such a
You hope
devotee.
he's kind of grown with the times. And
he understands that, he
respects like
the economy
and stuff.
He 100% does. Yeah. But yeah, so that's why I love this movie. It just encapsulates everything that I love about Halloween. And yeah, it's just become a tradition in my life to watch this movie every single year.
So yeah, we watched this, and you mentioned you love this movie. It became a cult movie. It showcased in front of a crowd at San Diego Comic-Con, which makes total sense to me because it seems like exactly the type of film that crowd would love, because you can tell how much it loves Halloween
Yeah.
tropes and Halloween movies and scary movies in general, while also kind of turning them on their head. And one thing I loved about each of the different stories in this movie is that there's a clear point where things get turned around and they kind of they exceed your expectations, or like they reverse your expectations in a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So you have the serial killer story where he's freaking out in the backyard. He's trying to bury this body. I was just like riddled with anxiety watching that whole entire thing, because he's freaking out on screen and like I'm freaking out. His son is like screaming at him and being all annoying from the house. And you think, oh God, like he's gonna go in and like kill his son. Like, first off, like, why did it take him this long? Second off, like that's gonna be horrible because this is like a 5-year-old. But no, it turns out, and I really wasn't expecting it, even though he was talking about like putting the pumpkin on ice earlier. Like I should have clued into that. The very last scene of that story is like him and his son with a knife carving up this kid's head.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's dark as shit. Like, so out of the 4, that one is like my least favorite. It's the household's least favorite.
Right.
But it's the introduction to a lot of the plot devices and some of the...
It's kind of the opener.
Yeah, it's the key to, some of the subversion that's going to happen throughout the movie. It feels gritty. It's a little dirty. It's like, I'm really uncomfortable with this. Like, he's going to kill his kid. But then he doesn't. But it's perfectly balanced with a lot of humor and weird stuff in there. It's great.
I think my favorite of the 4 vignettes was actually the quarry one. So the Legend of the Dead School Bus Kids, or whatever they officially call it. So I really liked how you kind of step by stepped into that one. So you have all these other stories happening, and throughout all of them, there's this group of kids that are going from house to house collecting pumpkins. And my one note on that was like, if a kid asked for my jack-o'-lantern, I'd be like, no, I'm not giving you this. Why are people giving them their jack-o'-lanterns? That's such a weird thing to ask for. But they're these group of like seemingly nice kids, and then the story turns to them, and they're doing some classic like kid Halloween stuff. They're going to go to this scary place and tell a ghost story on Halloween. They go to the house of this strange girl, this girl who's different, and they bring her along. And it turns out that they're bringing her to the quarry. They tell her the story of the dead kids in the bus who died there. The production value of the bus itself, by the way, when it's like submerged in the water.
Ooh,
amazing.
yeah. Oh yeah. So
there's
good.
like one shot where it's like all misty and dark and the bus is like coming out. It looks so good. And then I love that the subversion there, once the actual, so they've pulled the prank on the girl, and it's like really cruel. It's these mean
It's
kids.
so fucking mean.
And I think like the guy is actually going to be defending the girl, and he kind of has a crush on her, which the other girl doesn't like. And so it's very much like Final Girl vibes when the actual zombies pop out of the water and start attacking them. And then one of my favorite parts that I actually cracked up with you on as it was happening is when the girl that they were making fun of and pranking locks them out of the elevator and just
it just starts going up.
It was amazing. And then I have a list of parts from this movie that I love. I can go through it, but like it happens right after that she actually comes out of the elevator and she sees Sam sitting there.
Yeah.
And they kind of like give a nod of respect to each other.
Absolutely.
And then she goes on her way because
Yeah.
Sam's the one that's kind of just like looking at all of this stuff happening as it's happening throughout Halloween night. I loved it.
Yeah. Like Sam has the respect of like, hey, you followed the rules.
She's got a jack-o'-lantern.
You understand that jack-o'-lanterns need to be lit. They will protect you. Keep it lit. She understands. She's the innocent bystander. And that one, this just gets heavily chided throughout the whole time we're watching it at home. It's just like, fuck these kids. Fuck these bullies. They're such asshole kids. But like you go back and you look at it like, sure, they're like 12, 13, 14 years old. And like, that's what, young adolescence looks like. You're just being cruel for no reason. And, it is just the taste of sweet justice when you can hear them, their flesh being torn as Rhonda is riding up the elevator and they're just dying this gruesome death, and they get what they deserve for sure.
It is kind of fun how you could probably trace each of the four main stories in this movie back to like different scary movie genres, like mini genres in
Oh
itself.
yeah.
So like the kids in the quarry is definitely like Stephen King vibes. It's
Hmm.
it's the bullies getting killed by the monsters. It's very much kids in a little quarry. That happens a lot in Stephen King movies, actually.
Yeah.
And then there's the serial killer tale that also gets turned on its head. There's the monster, the straight up monster tale that happens in the woods with the werewolves.
Yeah.
Also not what you expect. And then there's the classic, like, I want to call it like a house Halloween movie where
Yeah.
things are happening within an enclosed house
Hmm.
space. In this case, it's Brian Cox as the old version of the bus driver who is being tormented by Sam, and that's when Sam, the little kid with the pumpkin mask, takes an active role in the story, and you can
Yeah.
tell he's kind of getting revenge on this guy after so many years because he definitely broke a lot of Halloween rules.
Yeah, I'm curious as to how like, and I on this last rewatch, I was like, why this particular Halloween
Right.
does Sam decide to exact his revenge, and why this exact particular Halloween did the zombie kids decide to come back? I don't know. I don't think they mentioned it if it was any kind of anniversary. Maybe they did. I think they said like 20 years or 30 years ago on Halloween, this is what happened. So maybe that kind of thing. So maybe some It vibes, but I'm not sure. But
It
yeah,
that I definitely thought of that for all of the stories. Like, if these things happen on a yearly basis, how is anyone in this town
still
alive?
alive. Yeah. So
How is
like
this serial killer still going?
the only thing that makes sense is so like with the girls, the werewolves, they said that
Hmm.
they're just in town for the night. So they obviously they rove around. They mentioned that they were in, different places, different Halloweens in years past. So they do this from year to year. So they're not permanent residents. And obviously, like the principal's background or backyard isn't just mounds of dirt. So like maybe he just recently snapped. Who knows? Maybe he killed his wife because he's like, "Daddy, I wish mommy was still alive." So like, did he kill the mom? Maybe he did. So maybe that is a recent, kind of thing that he came in. But he used to be. It seemed like he used to be a proponent of the rules of Halloween. He used to follow them, but
Oh
he
yeah,
went
when
too
he
far.
when he comes home at night in his work clothes and sits on his porch and starts carving a jack-o'-lantern between his legs, that was like one of the most disturbing parts of the movie for me.
Oh yeah, I love it.
Um,
It's you don't you're like, is he just going to kill him on the porch? And it's like he does, but not in the way I expected. Oh yeah, check your candy. Amazing. I love it.
I will say I didn't include it in my plot description, but I really did like how one of the time elements of the story that you don't realize is being kind of fucked with is that the guy who's stalking Anna Paquin's character, the werewolf in secret while she's going through the party. So their story actually takes place maybe a few hours later than the serial killer story, which you
Yep.
don't realize, and it turns out it's the same guy. So it's him later that night trying to go after another victim, and it turns out she brings him into the woods and he is her victim
Yep.
in that
It's
case.
it's a good twist. I love it.
Yeah.
I remember being like genuinely shocked. I was like, oh man, like that's when did this happen? Like, and then
Yeah.
you see it later at the end. Like the kid is all alone on the front porch. You're like, oh, his dad just died, and his mom's dead too. But he's also kind
He
of a serial killer, so he'll be
he's
fine.
got some sociopath vibes. Like, I think he'll be just fine.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk next about my general affinity for horror and how it kind of spurned. I think you brought it up as we were leaving, and I said we'll talk about it. So here's my first general memory of spookiness. Uh, you're gonna laugh. This is great. Was Michael Jackson's Thriller video,
Oh, I could believe that. Yeah.
right? I don't remember exactly when I saw it, but I had to have been four or something, at least three or four, seeing it on MTV. My parents would let me watch MTV because they were cool as hell, and they let me watch it. And the first time I saw it, I was like, this is the most horrifying shit I have ever seen in my entire life. And then I kept seeing it, years later, but it still holds up. The makeup and the sound effects and everything is just absolutely terrifying.
Would you say that memory, the slight trauma there, made you a horror fan and also a musician later on in life?
You know what? It very well could have. I wouldn't put it past that exact occurrence. So that's one cornerstone to this. That is Michael Jackson Thriller. So that is one corner of me. The next one being, this was my first movie ever that I saw in theaters, and it wasn't my choice. And we'll talk about this later. I think sometime in January I want to do this. I want to do like our firsts, right? Our
Yeah.
first movie
I,
that we saw in theater.
I told you what mine was, but I'll save it.
Save it. But just for the spirit of horror and the theme. While this movie is not a true horror movie, there are horror adjacent elements to it. There's supernatural elements, spirits, afterlife, demons, death, murder, right? This is 1990s Ghost.
Oh,
My
hell yeah.
my mom took me to go see Ghost for some reason because she really wanted to and couldn't find a sitter, I guess. Her and a friend at the time. I don't remember who it was. I can't remember. Mom, if you remember, let me know. Shoot me a text. Um, Took us to go see it, just me and her friend. And I remember her specifically covering my eyes during the scenes where somebody bad dies and gets dragged to hell. It is absolutely terrifying. The sounds, I still remember hearing them, but not being able to see it, and that's worse. But that is another cornerstone for me of like the first movie in theater that I ever saw, and it kind of had like really weird, dark themes to it.
It's like a high concept comedy drama with romance for most of it, and then there's shadow demons towards the end. So I get it.
Extreme shadow demons with Whoopi Goldberg just lighting up the screen. Yeah, so
She's great.
we got Thriller, we got Ghost, and then the last one being Nickelodeon used to do this thing on Saturday nights called Snick. Snick was just their Saturday night like block of TV. It was a 2-hour block of like premium, the best of the best that they would bring out. It was kind of their answer to primetime television at the time, or Saturday Night Live that adults would watch. And this included wonderful shows such as Clarissa Explains It All, Ren and Stimpy, Roundhouse. They eventually added to the list Adventures of Pete and Pete, all that, Space Cases, The Secret World of Alex Mack, and Keenan and Kel, all the great stuff. But those first three, Clarissa, Ren and Stimpy, and Roundhouse, were the first three of the like initial run of Snick. And I remember watching it the very first time that it debuted. It debuted August 15th, 1992. I was 5 years old. And to round out the Snick like compendium of the night was Are You Afraid of the Dark? Was this horrifying campfire show. They would tell a new story each week from one of the kids that's out in the woods. The Midnight Society is what they were called. And the very first episode was called The Tale of the Phantom Cab. And it's really creepy and weird when I remember it. I'm sure if I were to go back and look at it with an adult set of eyes, it's not that bad. But here's the plot description to that. It's one sentence. Two brothers. It's two brothers.
Two brothers.
Two brothers. While lost in the woods, does that sound familiar? Come across a mysterious cab driver and a very unusual man named Dr. Vink, who won't let any of his visitors leave unless they solve a riddle. And it's really unnerving, and it's really, I don't know, just filled
The
with anxiety.
vibes are already off.
Yeah, so 5-year-old me, having already seen Thriller, having already been dragged to go see Ghost, and now this is the top piece of my triangle of horror, is this, and it just cemented in. And I was like, this slaps. This is my jam.
I want to go through my evolution of like scariest movies in my life as well. But first, I want to say that I also have a deep childhood connection to Snick, and I will tell you why. So we did not have like TV channels growing up. We had like movies and DVDs that we could watch, but we didn't have like cable and stuff. So we didn't have like Nickelodeon or Disney Channel or anything like that. But one of the old VHSs that we had that we watched all the time was a 4-episode like compendium of literally those 4 shows that you mentioned. So it was Clarissa Explains It All, it was Ren and Stimpy, it was Roundhouse, and then it was Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Yeah, baby.
And so we watched that all the time. And then the Are You Afraid of the Dark? This is probably I don't have it on my list, but this is probably like a what do you call it? Like an honorable mention
Sure.
to the scariest things I've seen. Our episode was called "The Tale of the Lonely Ghost," and it was about this girl who moves in with like her cousin and aunt or something, and then the next door house is empty, and they're trying to sell it. Her aunt's like a realtor, and she goes and searches through the house, and there's a ghost of a little girl who's mute, and she shows up in the mirrors sometime,
Yeah.
and it's really creepy. It has kind of a happy ending, but it also involves people like walking into mirrors and getting trapped in mirrors,
Yeah.
and I was not about that.
I remember that one.
But yeah, I really love that we have a shared formative experience around Snick.
Yeah, man. I love it. That's what else you got on your list?
Yeah, let me go through this list because I told you coming out of Trick or Treat that it's not going to be what you expect. So let me find it. Where is my list? Okay. As a child, I used to be extremely not into horror movies. Like we couldn't do it. Very anxious child because like I took movies home with me
Sure.
in my mind and in my heart and
Of
soul,
course. Yeah.
and could not stop thinking about them. So the first movie I remember ever being like truly terrified by was The Witches. Roald
Okay.
Dahl's The Witches.
Yeah.
People pulling their faces off, people turning into mice, all of that. Couldn't
Dark.
do it. Nope.
Dark. Yep.
Yeah. The next movie, this is kind of a pair. They're not horror movies. It is War of the Worlds with Tom Cruise.
Okay.
And
Thriller.
then X-Men: The Last Stand. And I will tell you why. Like 10-year-old Joe
Yep.
could not like wrap his head around like people evaporating on screen and getting
my
like
God.
vaporized.
Yeah.
Can't do it. Do it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Like did not sit well. And that happens in both of those movies. And so
It does.
like truly terrified. Still honestly can't really do that today. That's a weird thing in my mind.
That's a deep fear of being vaporized.
I wonder if there's a word for it. Yeah. It's just the first time I saw it on screen, I was just like, nope, something's truly deeply wrong here. No.
War of the Worlds, I
That's
enjoyed
a stressful movie.
I enjoyed it. Yes, it is high stress, high thriller, jump scare, big concept. It's a Tom Cruise movie for sure. But yeah, I can see how that would frighten a 10-year-old.
Yeah. I mean, I respect both, maybe not X-Men 3, but War of the Worlds for what it is now. I think it's a well-made and interesting film that has like ups and downs in terms of different themes and stuff. But yeah, scariest movie. And that was like maybe 2004 to 2006-ish until it got trumped by an actual horror movie, The Ring, which just fucking freaked me out for a really long time. Just in perpetuity.
I saw that movie in theaters, and I remember my friend Brian talking about this movie in particular at one panel at Dragon Con a couple years ago, or several years ago. But like Ring, seeing that movie in theaters, I was probably 15 when it came out, 14 or 15. And the crowd, everyone in the theater getting into it, being terrified together was a really fun, unique experience. And at the end, when Samara comes through the TV, literally everyone is having the exact same visceral reaction of like, I can't get farther back in my chair enough because she's actually coming for me. And I had to sleep with the lights on the first night after I saw the theater. And the next night I slept with the blanket over the TV.
Yeah, I was just on the cusp of not being able to enjoy that. Like these days, and I'll get into it, but like horror movies these days, I think I can really enjoy if I'm watching them with a crowd in a movie theater. And some of the best movie theater going experiences I've had have been horror movies.
Yeah.
So specifically like The Visit, the M. Night Shyamalan movie back in 2016-ish.
With the old people, right?
The one with the old people where it's all
Yeah.
found footage. That was real fun to watch in the movie. And then my favorite movie theater experience of all time was a packed crowd here in Atlanta watching Us back in like
Ooh.
2018,
17,
2019.
2018. Yeah, holy shit, that's cool.
So fun.
Yeah.
So fun.
That's awesome.
But then I also had a note around like what's my scariest movie just like right now that I can think of that I've seen. And it was kind of hard because it's hard to really define a scary movie at this point, because I think the genre itself has kind of broken out into a lot of mini genres.
For sure.
And so
Yep.
I tend to really like kind of like Trick or Treat, but scary movies that have a level of comedy to them, but they also like have heavy emotional themes as well. So you have the It movies.
Yep.
Loved those.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Maybe loved the first one better than the second, but whatever.
Yeah. It goes without saying.
And then you have. Did you ever watch Haunting of Hill House on Netflix?
Oh yeah. The whole last
One of my
episode.
favorite shows.
The whole last episode is just an emotional roller coaster the whole time, and you're like, this has wrecked me for a long time. Yeah.
Like it's truly scary at certain points, but it also leads towards emotional payoffs in ways that you don't really expect. And I've really come to love that type of horror subgenre. Really anything by Mike Flanagan, the guy who does Haunting of Haunting of Hill House.
Have you seen some of his other stuff that he did? Was it the Ouija?
Yeah. So he did the Ouija movie. He did the movie Hush. Did you ever see that?
Love Hush.
I love Hush.
Hush your mouth. Hush up. It's so good.
I really want to be able to talk about that at some point on this podcast. I love that movie. And then he did some more recent ones. Did you ever see Doctor Sleep?
I haven't seen Doctor Sleep yet. No, I need to. I read
really
the book.
good.
I read the book because I love The Shining. The both takes on it, the book and the film as well. But I've only read the book, Doctor Sleep. Very cool stuff, Joe. I love learning this about you, and I love that we get to do this together.
Yeah.
How fun!
Yeah, Doctor Sleep. Probably my recommendation coming out of this episode, if I have to give one, it's go watch Doctor Sleep. But then
there's a couple days left before Halloween, and I'm gonna put that on my list to watch.
Do it.
Yeah.
It's real fun. The only other like scary movie I've seen in the past that I'd probably call just the most generically scary was The Conjuring 2.
You know what? I have a weird thought around, or not even thought, just thoughts around the Conjuring movies, like Conjuring and Insidious. Like I lump them all together, and they don't scare me, and I'm not like entertained by them either because they're kind of both the same movie. But.
So I'm coming at it from a heavy Catholic standpoint.
Oh,
and when the devil gets involved with things tend to get a little too real. So I've still never seen The Exorcist, so that could probably go on our list.
Okay, then we'll see that one, because I remember watching that as like a 10-year-old or an 11-year-old, and then just like, this is...
I believe that.
This is the worst thing I've ever seen. I had to watch it with all the lights on. Anyway, so we're getting further away from Trick or Treat, period. But this is turned into horror talk, which I'm not mad about. But I'm glad we've been able to kind of explore this a little bit. So just to kind of reel it back in, let's reel it back a little bit. And we've kind of danced around some of the cult status around this movie. I think the general populace and marketing firms and stuff latched on to the instantly recognizable imagery and iconography associated with this film, specifically Sam. Sam has become the quintessential icon to Halloween, and that's why there's just shitloads of merchandise everywhere around this little character that most people may not even know. Like your original, read on it is just like, I don't know anything about the movie, but I know who Sam is. Or I know what Sam looks like and that he is from a movie, but like you kind of equate him to like a Santa Claus type of character, right? When you think of the holiday. It's pretty great.
One of the parts I laughed at during the movie was when he was fighting Brian Cox, and then it shows his costume has like a little like
butt flap
on it. It was so cute. I kind of loved Sam throughout this whole movie.
He's got a cute little pumpkin butt. Like,
He's wearing like a little baby onesie.
yeah, it's adorable. My daughter has a very similar, like, orange footy pajama thing, and it's great. I'm gonna have to get her an actual like Sam costume
Sam
for next year.
cosplay.
It's gonna be great. But yeah, so I hit that this was completed in 2007, written, directed, and all that kind of stuff by Michael Dougherty. Um, he said he always wondered why Halloween never had a Santa Claus like mascot, or even Easter, St. Patrick's Day,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So that's why he kind of came up with this idea of Sam being the embodiment, the spirit of Halloween itself. And there was an animated short that he did in 1996 called Season's Greetings that has like a rough outline, or a rough version of what Sam would be. It's this pajamaed little person with a burlap sack round head going around, in search of candy, while
He's the prototypical trick-or-treater.
yeah, exactly. That's exactly what he is. There's a silent stranger that kind of like stalks him through the night, and he ends up kind of just offing him at the end. It's super cool. It's 3 minutes long, and it's really cool, and you can kind of see where some of the seeds were planted. But yeah, so Dougherty did this as a student at NYU in 1996, and was told by students and staff and all the friends, like, you should make this concept into a feature length. And it, took him 10 years in the making to get there. But, hats off to him for doing it, because he created one of the coolest things that the Halloween season, has gotten since, like I mentioned, Freddy, Jason, Chucky, all the shit. It's super cool.
Good for him. This is kind of noticing through lines here. This is our second episode in a row where a creator has taken something they've done in the past in a small form and expanded on it to kind of be either a full-length miniseries or a full-length feature film in this case. I wonder, again, like, in the way that you're attracted to anthologies in these ways, like, it seems like you're also driven by these types of they had small beginnings but became something bigger, and there's a definite there's a progression in the director's work there.
Yeah, even to episode 2 or whatever it was with Pulp Fiction, same kind of thing. That was the thing that propelled Quentin Tarantino into the zeitgeist. Yeah, I don't know why I'm attracted to that kind of thing, that kind of storytelling. It's just that's my
you
type.
like directors with vision,
with hunger, with
yes.
This is what's right to me in my gut. Another call out that I wanted to do about this movie. So obviously, going back to the year 2017, by that point, this movie had been out by about 8 years or so, and it had reached a pretty critical, cult status. It was picked up by Universal Studios' Halloween Horror Nights. In 2017, it was a dedicated, or it was just a scare zone at that time. Easy to kind of like recreate Warren Valley, Ohio, in a small little corridor throughout the park for this horror event. For those of you who don't know, Universal Halloween Horror Nights is a thing that's very near and dear to my heart that I love so much. I like to go to it whenever I can. I haven't been able to in the past couple of years due to the state of the world. And things like that, and also having a baby, it kind of changes things.
If your movie makes it to Universal Studios Halloween Horror Night, you've made it. You
have 100% made it. Yeah. So well done, Mike Dougherty. You've made it in 2017, retroactive. But so yeah, Halloween Horror Nights is a Universal Studios. It's a thing in Florida. There's also one in Hollywood and somewhere in Tokyo, I think, and a couple other places. But throughout the month of September and October, they do... Oh, no, my camera's about to turn off. I promise I'm still here. Joe, don't worry. Throughout September and October, they like to do this thing where after hours, they set up haunted houses in the parks and some of like back lots and random spots throughout the park. And you can still ride rides. It's super cool. It's really immersive. There's tons of fog. There's music going all over the whole time, and a lot of the houses are usually centered around either some kind of IP. They usually do like a Halloween house. In the past couple of years, they've done a Stranger Things house whenever they get the rights to it. They've done a Killer Clowns from Outer Space house. And a lot of the times, the rest of the houses are made up of just like original ideas that the cast and crew on set come up with, which is really rad.
My main experience with Universal Halloween Horror Nights is I went there maybe about 5 years ago with my nieces and nephews who were really young at the time, and we went during the day to actually just like experience the park. And then as the sun was going down, we had to like run to the exit because people were starting to come out of the shadows.
Yep.
They don't really like ring a bell or anything when it starts to change over. It's like you gotta go.
Yeah.
So it's just us with a group of kids running through these zombie actors.
Mm-hmm. So fun. How cool is that?
It was fun. It was
Yeah.
fun.
But yeah, so it started out as just a scare zone, which is just like a place that people just walk through going from place to place throughout the park. It's a very small place. But then the next year in 2018, they brought them back to do a dedicated spot on house. And I went that year and it was so cool. They faithfully like recreate so many iconic scenes from that movie. Like you walk through, Mr. Krieg's, Brian Cox's house, which is really cool. You can see up the stairs and you can see a Sam run by as the light flashes. They did a really cool, replica of the bus coming out of the lake with some of those zombie kids kind of like peeking out behind to scare you. It was rad.
Do they build like net new stuff, or are they repurposing current rides at Universal?
So they don't touch the rides. These are
Right.
like usually in like a big warehouse areas, usually for storage or for overfill or whatever that they need it for. But most of the time, these are built and made for these specific events or this specific event. Surely they repurpose a lot of set pieces or whatever, but a lot of the times they make brand new things to kind of, at least for, some of the IP things, they have to make it look exactly like this one shot or something like that. It's super cool.
That's so fun. And it's probably a super fun way for like you're saying, literally those set pieces to kind of see the light of day once more and entertain people.
Yeah, and it's really for the super fans like myself to like be on set and kind of like be a part of the movie, which is really cool. A couple years ago, they did a Ghostbusters one, and that was awesome to like walk on the rooftop and have Zool be right there, and just in all their glory. Super cool. So yeah,
This is a Universal Studios fan podcast, by the way. We're definitely Universal and not Disney.
Definitely not Disney. Hashtag Universal forever. That's the number 4. So we already kind of talked through some of the standout scenes and some other things. So I kind of wanted to hit you with some trivia and Easter eggs, and we'll go through it.
Get at me.
Yeah. So the kid at the beginning that you see in the costume shop that is peeking into the girls' dressing rooms like a fucking creep. That kid's name is Quinn Lord. He is also the same actor who played Sam.
That is so fun.
Isn't
what
it?
a fun little tidbit for that kid. Like, he doesn't have to have his face plastered all over things to like ruin him as a child actor, but he's like, yeah,
that's
I play
me.
this iconic Halloween character.
That's me. Yeah, super cool. Most of the jack-o'-lanterns on set, not real. They were ceramic or foam, obviously. Like, you can't just have real pumpkins. They would just rot.
Well, Sam's going to get him for that.
Or Sam's going to get them. But, the rest of the crew was never heard from again. I mentioned
one of those cursed productions.
It really is. The first 5 minutes, like I mentioned, has numerous amounts of overlap. Characters pop up and crossover throughout numerous points throughout the film. The clown kids that they come up on the scene, like just as Leslie Bibb's characters get killed. You see them later in the movie as they're knocking on Mr. Krieg's door. The school bus kids in the background, Schrader running off with the grocery cart. Super cool stuff. So here's something that's interesting. Thematics. Love it. The main theme that comes through each one of these stories is an individual's journey through experiencing Halloween. So come with me for this. introducing the holiday, the rules, the traditions, being young. That's the principal storyline. He kind of sets it up, introduces some of the plot things. And also,
Right.
there's a kid, there's a child there experiencing these things. Um, as you grow up a little bit more into adolescence, you're trick or treating on your own with your friends, and you're kind of scaring your friends, and maybe you do a cruel prank here and there. That's the ghost story. That's the ghost school bus massacre storyline. Then you get a little bit older into your 20s, where it's all about drinking and partying and having sex and murder. That's,
Halloween has to become sexy.
yeah, and that's the werewolf storyline, right? That's what they're after. They're after just fresh meat. That they're in town to just party, hang out, and drink and murder and go out. That's that line. And then the last segment being Mr. Krieg. You're in your twilight years. You're over it. You're essentially the Scrooge of Halloween, and it's come full circle. It's life, baby.
I love that the implication here is that you go from your sexy 20s straight
Right.
into like old age.
Yeah, it's like I am over it. I'm not about this anymore. Please leave me alone.
There are no middle-aged people on Halloween.
Yeah. Here's another interesting standout. All of the kills are either off camera or cut away just before.
It's not a super bloody, gory movie.
No.
Really.
Yeah, there's blood to be seen, but it's not like sprayed like you see in a very graphic kind of way. So I bet, the MPAA didn't have to have anybody's ass for this movie, which is good to see. And last little thing here, the werewolf transformations that took place in the woods, most of those were practical with very little CG enhancements.
It was very cool how they very much showed them like ripping their skin off essentially. That like they weren't trying to be super sexy about it, but also the actual werewolf, the full-on werewolf head that they do show that's kind of howling is very like Jim Henson-esque. Like it doesn't look like an actual wolf, it looks like it's a puppet, but it's
still real.
It kind of
scary.
brings you in that way. Yeah, it feels like a classic Halloween movie monster type thing.
Yeah, apparently the crew that worked on those wolves did some of the underworld. Kate Beckett? Kate Beckinsale. I was like, Kate Blanchett. That's not it. That's the different Kate.
That would be amazing. Wow.
No, she makes an appearance at the end. But yeah, that's all some of the trivia and Easter eggs I kind of wanted to give you that stand out for me. Yeah, I love this movie so much. My favorite segment is the werewolf one, just because like super cool transition. It's a neat like turn on its head. I remember seeing it for the first time. I was like, are they like witches or vampires?
Oh.
Are they really vampires? What are they gonna do? It's like, oh no, they're werewolves. That's so cool.
I turned to you at almost the beginning of that segment and I was like, they're going to eat that guy.
Yeah.
But what I didn't know is like what they were, like you're
Mhm.
saying. I didn't really catch on to that until almost the very end. I was like, are they some sort of like siren character? Are they just
Yeah.
like cannibals? But then they do drop clues.
They dropped
She says
numerous
yeah.
clues throughout. And the very first one that they do when they're at the costume shop and they're trying to get her to come out of the door, and they're like, come on out. And she's like, no, I look stupid. And they're like, come on out, or we'll huff and we'll puff. And it's just like, oh, that's so good. They're genius. They know what they're doing. They know
Her
what they're
mom
doing.
says she's the
It's the
runt of
runt.
the litter, all this stuff.
Yeah, it all comes together, and then they turn into really rad werewolf babes and just tear that guy a new one. Super cool. So, Joe, give me some of your closing thoughts, closing
I
arguments.
had some thoughts.
Give them to me.
Let me kind of just run through them. So, looking through my notes, I had a note around the idea of like horror in the form of jump scares,
Mhm.
which I think, again, if you look at horror movies that we've been talking about, is almost like a subgenre in and of itself. You have horror movies that are really heavy on comedy or emotion, and then there's horror movies that are really heavy on like religious themes, and then there's horror movies that rely mainly on jump scares, like this movie tries to kind of subvert in certain ways.
Yep.
And what was interesting to me watching this is that becoming more and more of a horror fan in the past few years, you really start to get a sixth sense, no pun intended, around when a jump scare is going to happen. And
Yeah.
so you kind of know, and it doesn't necessarily startle you in a way, but it's still fun to enjoy.
Yeah.
Like I'll watch a movie with my boyfriend, and he doesn't do horror at
I know you
all.
told
But
me that, and I was like, how do you even watch these movies? I guess you
I'll
have to
be
watch it
able
by
to
yourself.
I'll be able to look at the movie and tell him like 5 seconds before it happens. I'm like, okay, this is going to happen. This is going to happen. This is going to happen.
Turn your
Just to
head.
let you
Yeah,
know.
this is going to be bad. Yep.
Very much wants me to spoil it with him. But that also makes it all the more effective when a jump scare is used when you don't expect it.
Mhm.
So I always think of the example of Haunting of Hill House. There's a really famous jump scare in that TV show that I when I was watching it, I was like alone in my parents' basement because it was like over Thanksgiving or some reason. And I was kind of lying on the floor in front of the TV, and my body maybe lifted about six to 12 inches off the
I
ground
believe it.
fully
Yeah.
when one of those jump scares happened. So
Hmm.
it's an overused tool that when used right
Oh man, is it
is all the
effective?
more effective, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So kind of like establishing that language around horror movies has been a really cool way to evolve in my appreciation of horror movies. Like I know
Yeah.
what should happen when. I know the tropes, right?
Yeah. And this one kind of, paid homage to it as well as subverted it. And
Hmm.
one of our lost episodes that we did where we talked about Scream,
Hmm.
that had a hand in influencing this movie with the opening scene where like there's a kill immediately when you think that that person's going to hang around. This movie pays a lot of homage to the original Halloween, The Thing, just a lot of great stuff. And like I said, it's just a classic love story to horror and Halloween. Period.
For any new listeners out there, Scream is one of the first episodes that we did, and it ended up being about 2.5 hours long, and it didn't really have the structure that we were going for. So it may be released as a bonus episode in the future.
Stay tuned.
Um, I do have a list of parts of this movie that I loved that we maybe haven't covered real quick, and
Let's
then I
do it.
have a list of times that I cracked up.
Yep. Hit me.
So parts that I loved, Rhonda and Sam nodding at each other in
Mm,
respect. I really loved that little moment.
it's good.
Leslie Bibb just fucking hating Halloween while she's dressed as like this
A
clunky
fucking
robot.
robot. Yeah.
Leslie Bibb being psycho and deciding to clean up the Halloween decorations in her lawn the night of, because she's just so over
She's
it.
over
My
it. She's
note
over it.
here is Sam was justified in what he did.
Definitely.
The We were talking about homages to other horror movies. There's a very clear one that I caught. There's a Pet Cemetery reference in here where Sam slices the Achilles tendon of Brian Cox
Yes.
when he's under the
100%.
bed.
Yeah. That's how he gets old man Judd. Yeah.
So
Good
fun.
catch.
I
Good
love
catch.
movie connections. And then I kind of turned to you. I should have seen it coming, but I love when all these stories come together at the end and they're all in that final scene. All these characters are kind of reaching the end or the beginning or the middle of their story in that final scene together on the street, and you don't even realize it until the very end when it kind of runs through that scene from a different perspective.
Yeah, it's real. It's
Uh,
just a simple like camera panned up, and you can see like Rhonda's face, and you can see the girls in the car, and you
mhm.
can see the zombie kids leaving off camera, and like it all comes together right there, and it's beautiful. I love it.
And there's a shot of the old man and Sam kind of like sharing one last look while he's standing up on his porch and Sam is standing on the ground and he's about to go over and murder Leslie Bibb, and the old man
It
just kind of turns back inside before he eventually
meets
gets
meets
killed by
his
the
end.
zombie kids.
Yeah, I this last time we saw it, I had a thought of I think it was season 2, Rick and Morty with Michael Crumbopoulos. Uh, just like, well, here I go, killing again. And that's
Oops, here I go.
that's exactly what Sam had to do. He's like, oh, I gotta go kill this lady real quick. You stay good, like we got an understanding, but I gotta go kill her real quick.
There's a weird amount of respect there, but I was sitting next to you in the theater and I did kind of crack up laughing a few times. So the Sweet Dreams sequence with the werewolves I thought was hilarious and campy and awesome. Um, a lot of the Brian Cox storyline with the old man in the house getting tormented by Sam, there were so many funny bits with the hand getting cut off and moving on its own, like Thing from the Addams Family. There's a point where he gets to a phone and he dials 911, and this is like a tiny 2-second bit, but they put him on hold and some hold music starts playing,
I know, it's so
and I
funny.
died.
Can 911 do that? Can they put you on hold?
I
don't think so.
I don't think so.
911, please
Like-
hold.
And then like elevator music starts playing.
God,
And then
dude.
so the old man gets a hold of a shotgun and he finally shoots Sam, and Sam's body just like being flung across the room for some reason. I found that darkly funny.
Oh yeah.
Sam having a razor blade in his candy that he slowly unwraps, and that's what he attacks him with.
Ooh,
that was awesome.
He got that candy from Mr. Wilkins' house next door from his candy bucket.
There you go.
And it had a razor in it because Wilkins was poisoning all the candy.
Wilkins was the one. He's the urban legend of people poisoning candy, and he's the reason why you have to check.
He definitely is. He definitely is.
He's another Halloween staple.
Yep.
Yeah, and then the kid that Wilkins is poisoning just throwing up for so
long
much and so long. It's a 30-second sequence of him just throwing up blood and chocolate, I guess.
Chocolate, and then just
all
like
over these steps.
his innards, and it's so good. It's so gross out and just over the top campy. I love it though.
And then my final thought, I wanted to ask you this question. Like, looking at this movie, there was a real emphasis on like horror costumes as part of Halloween, but I feel like these days no one really wears scary costumes, right? It's more of just like you're dressing up as a movie character or something like that. At least that's my experience. What is your experience with Halloween costumes these days?
It weaves in and out. I think a lot of cosplay culture, has kind of bled into Halloween. Cosplay being, you're just playing as a character that you enjoy, but in costume. That's popular at like festivals or like Comic-Con or Dragon Con, just any con really. It's popular to dress up as your favorite fandom or something like that. And I think, it's over the past, 10, 15, 20 years, the commercialization of Halloween in general, the popularization of like kids characters that are like easy to emulate, like Power Rangers, starting with Power Rangers and all the way up through like Paw Patrol and that kind of stuff, where it's easy to kind of like capitalize on that. So I think it's an interesting blend where like probably majority of people dress up as a character of sorts. It's no longer just like I'm a ghoul or a goblin or whatever. There is still that, but I think it's majority, it's what you can grab off the shelf and you are now Sarah Sanderson from Hocus Pocus or something,
You hit the nail on the head. I think it's really the popularity of cosplay has really ingrained itself into Halloween. So you find yourself emulating specific people as opposed to ideas and scary concepts and stuff.
Yeah. Nerd culture has definitely taken a step into the limelight.
What's your favorite Halloween costume you've ever done?
My favorite Halloween costume I ever did was based on an R.L. Stine Goosebumps book. I can't recall that. It was something to do with jack-o'-lanterns. I can't remember the name of it, but I was really excited. I bought a foam craft pumpkin, and I carved the jack-o'-lantern face on it, and I wore it on my head, and I wore like almost the exact same clothes that one of the main characters had at the cover. And that's what
it's the cover with the jack-o'-lantern head, kids.
Yeah, there was like 5 kids or something walking down a street, and I think that was one of the most recent Goosebumps books that I'd ever read, and I was like, I'm gonna do that for Halloween, and it was awesome because like I made it, that was one of my favorite ones.
Very nice. 100%. Goosebumps rocks.
Goosebumps rules. We should watch that movie and talk about it because I haven't seen it yet. Cool. That's been Trick or Treat, my favorite Halloween movie. I've seen it for the past 10 years, and I will continue to see it. I'm going to pass the torch on to my daughter, and she's going to watch it as well because she's going to love it too. It's going to be great.
Very nice.
It's going to be a thing. So here we are. We're at the very end again. We've reached it. End games, Joe. So the game we were going to play, I hadn't thought of a name yet, so you can pick whichever one you like the most. It's either going to be Everybody Wants to Rule the World or 3 Rules to Rule Them All. Take your pick. That's what that is. So here's the concept, and we danced around this. We talked about it. So throughout the movie, there are official, unofficial rules that they bring up. Wear a costume, pass out candy, keep your jack-o'-lantern lit, and always check your candy. Now, with those 4 rules, we had learned that Sam is the enforcer of those rules throughout the movie. So, Joe, for the following 3 holidays, what are the 3 official, unofficial rules, and who is the holiday's rule enforcer? We'll come right back to Everybody Wants to Rule the World with Joe. Yes, it is. The call is still important to us, folks. Welcome back to the Uncultured Cinematic Universe, and we're going to play Everybody Wants to Rule the World with Joe. And for those just catching up, Joe, here's the rules. For the following 3 holidays, what are the 3 official, unofficial rules, and who is that holiday's rules enforcer? Okay.
You know, a normal person would have given me the 3 holidays before the hold music to think through, but I love that we're just jumping into this.
We're just doing it because these are going to be easy. These are going to be fun. So I'm just going to give you the first holiday, and you tell me the rules and the enforcer, and then we'll move to the next one. I'm not going to give you too much time to think about it. You ready?
Okay.
These are going to be great. They're going to increase in level of difficulty. Christmas.
Christmas. Okay. The 3 rules for Christmas are if you're opening presents with a group of people, you all always have to open them 1 person at a time so that everyone can see and appreciate what everyone else gets.
I do agree with that.
At the same time, like a bunch of ravenous wolves, which I think is primitive.
Mm-hmm.
Rule number 2 is whenever you're eating a candy cane, you have to sharpen it into a shiv first before eating the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Rule number 3, you have to put the star on the tree last.
Ooh, yes.
As the final thing.
Don't you dare put that tree on first.
The enforcer of these Christmas rules is Rudolph's forgotten younger brother, Randall.
Randall. Is he also red-nosed?
No.
Poor guy.
It's blue.
It's blue. The blue-nosed reindeer. Randolph. Oh, Randall, not Randolph.
He hates when people get those messed up.
Yeah, I believe it. Okay, so that's Christmas. Those are 3 really great rules, and I abide by them 100%. So I am safe from Randall's wrath, the wrath of Randall. Next holiday, Joe. Valentine's Day.
Okay, Valentine's Day. Rule number 1 is that you have to have a date for Valentine's Day. I'm sorry, I don't make the rules. Pair up, y'all.
Pair up.
Rule number 2, you can't eat dinner at a place that you've been to before unless it was another Valentine's Day.
Oh, love that.
So you better have a Valentine's restaurant that is only a Valentine's restaurant in mind.
Yep.
Rule number 3 is you have to leave candy hearts out for Saint Valentine, who comes at 2:45 a.m. every night.
Love that. Is Saint Valentine the enforcer?
You would think that Saint Valentine is the enforcer, but no, it's actually Cupid, who drives around on a tricycle shooting people with arrows.
I love it. Tricycle.
Make them fall in love. So if you don't have a partner on Valentine's Day, the arrows become real arrows. And that's how he shoots you.
The arrows become real. That's great.
Mid-air.
Yeah. Like you're mid kiss, you're almost there, but you don't quite
Yeah.
make it. Dead.
It's
Immediate.
like 11:59 on Valentine's Day, and someone's getting chased by Cupid, trying to find someone else.
I would watch that movie. All right,
That'd be
and
a
last,
horrible, horrible movie.
that would be last. Here we go. Arbor Day.
Arbor Day. Are you ready for this? Because it's not going to be what you expect. Arbor Day. Rule number 1: you must eat a hot dog underneath the shade of a tree.
Mm.
Rule number 2: for every tree you plant, you have to cut down 2 because there's too many trees out there. Rule number 3: don't forget about the seaweed. So people are always planting trees for Arbor Day, but we get most of our oxygen from the plants that float on the ocean anyway. So
Don't forget the seaweed.
you really should be planting seaweed instead of trees.
I love it. And who is the
And
enforcer for Arbor Day?
The enforcer for Arbor Day, in line with what I just said, is a one-eyed dolphin named Frank.
One-eyed dolphin named Frank.
If you're on land, he won't get you, but
You're-
he'll
He'll remember.
he'll remember next time you try to get into the water.
He'll come get you. I love that. Joe, you did so good at Everybody Wants to Rule the World. We'll bring that up
was
next time.
Stressful.
Yeah, you know what? I like to keep you on your toes and leave you with a heightened sense of cortisol in your blood when we're done with this podcast. This is great. So that's it. We've did it. Trick or Treat from 2007, technically 2009 cult sleeper hit. Love this movie. It's Halloween. If you haven't checked it out, I highly recommend you do and make it a family staple in your household. Yeah, Joe, what else you got?
Justin, I'm really glad I let you kind of drive this Halloween miniseries to kind of close it out, and
Yeah.
we are really looking forward to future miniseries that we can do.
Absolutely.
We're already talking about potential Christmas ideas, so
Yeah.
look, keep an eye out for that in the future.
Yeah, definitely keep up with us on Instagram at UCU Podcast. And be sure to catch us on YouTube or wherever else you get your podcast, Spotify and Apple. Do the thing, watch the movies, and join in on the conversation. This has been the Uncultured Cinematic Universe. We'll catch you guys later. Bye.
Happy Halloween.